Welcome to this month's Salute to Service. Today I have with me Mr. Al Kato and Mr. Jerry Lemons, both retired U.S. Air Force veterans. And actually, Mr. Kato is an Army Air Corps veteran and an Air Force veteran, correct?
Correct.
How you doing, Al? Good to see you. Jerry, good to have you back on. I know you've been here before.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Al, let's start out with you. I mean, you served over a broad period of time. Went into the service in what year?
1943.
43. World War II's going on, and you served all the way till
the end of the war.
End of the war, and then you went on, but you served during Korea and Vietnam and all that too, and you retired eventually from the Air Force, right?
Right.
So when you went into the Air Force, what was going on as a young man back in 1943? What's going through your head?
Well, I was waiting to get in, and my father wouldn't let me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a buddy, Russell, and his father let him go.
Right. How old were you?
Oh, at that time, it had to be only about 16 or 17.
Right.
But Russell, he joined the Marines, and it wasn't 6 months later, he was gone.
Wow.
And I often think that my father might more or less save my life. He told me, you can go when you finish school. Seemed like I told you in Europe they had nothing.
Right.
So he wanted me to finish school because he never had a chance to go there. So I often think that the old man saved my life.
So you finished out high school and then you joined. Why,
Right.
why the Air Force?
Well, I don't know. The Air Force was in me. You know, I'd always build models or read about it or draw, you know, and read books. And when they sent me to Camp Perry, I never realized, you know, that they just pick out 50, 60 guys. You go here, you go there.
Right.
They assigned me to the Army Air Corps, you know, and boy, am I glad they did.
So what'd you do? What'd you wind up doing during World War II through the Air Corps?
Well, I ended up flying missions over Europe. I had 28 over Germany, 1 over Czechoslovakia, and 1 over Holland.
So 8th Air Force?
8th Air Force.
So you were flying out of England. What was your job? What was your job on? And what kind of aircraft were you on?
I was on a B-17.
Which is a bomber, right?
Right.
Okay.
A Boeing plane, and well, we bombed numerous targets, whatever they were, marshalling yards, factories, or whatever. We went to Pilsen, which was a munitions factory in Czechoslovakia. And as we're going there, we can hear on our radios that they're warning the people, slave workers in the factory, not to go to work today because the 8th Air Force is coming to bomb them. So I call up the pilot and I says, Christ, I can see them Germans wheeling every flak gun they can get a hold of, you know.
Right.
And they did. Boy, we almost got it on that one.
So you guys would fly out of England, fly over to Germany, bomb them, and then go back to England. And how many planes were typically in a formation with you guys?
Well, you know, when they started out, I think they started with 9 airplanes and lost, I don't know how many of the 6. But then after the war, combined with England, we flew with over 3,000 bombers at one time.
Wow.
And fight it well, like when they went to Dresden, I believe it was 350 17s and 551s.
And that's in one flight formation.
And then there was about 4 or 5 other places they went.
Right.
And poor Germans didn't know where the hell they're going.
Didn't know where everybody was going. So how many missions did you fly?
30.
30 missions. And was there like wasn't there a standard where, you know, if you did 25 missions, you were done or something like that?
Yeah, when I was there, to get the DFC, you had to have 35 missions.
Right.
I had 30.
So you had 30. What was your job on the aircraft?
Well, I was top turret gunner. I used my weapon when we had to and did whatever repairs or whatever I had to do to make the airplane.
So you're sitting on top of the airplane in one of those glass bubbles, am I right?
Right.
So your job is mostly probably to shoot down aircraft coming to like fighter jets and stuff like that? So imagine like the guy, so the guy on the bottom turret, he probably see the ground and the bombs falling and all that stuff. And what do you see on the top turret other than fighters coming at you?
Yeah, just mostly sky.
Yeah. And you're just scoping out for planes to shoot down that are coming at you.
Like the tail gunner would say that I never saw where we were going, but I always saw where we came back
Where you
from.
came back from, yeah.
So, well, that's just like the base we were at. The base we were at was like, say, oh hell, it was way smaller than Brunswick,
Right.
and the people there, they lived right next door to us. They say what we went through, you know,
Right.
how the planes come back, how the wounded were brought back, you know, and this and this and that, and they lived with us. And when we go there,
This is
for
in England, right?
right?
Yeah.
And when we went there for our reunions, they couldn't do enough for us.
Right.
You know, they couldn't do nothing for us from the war because they didn't have it.
Right.
But after the war, they threw parties.
They
for
realized
us
your
and all
freedom,
that.
yeah. That's amazing. So I assume you guys come back. I mean, when you got 300 planes going out, you come back and there's planes missing.
Oh, you know,
Obviously,
shit, they had. I think the greatest loss they had was over. What was the name of the city now? Ball Bearing Works, very important.
Schweinfurt?
Schweinfurt.
Yeah.
I think that was our biggest loss. I think 100 airplanes didn't come back.
Wow.
They either crash landed somewhere or landed away from their base. But we had.
So, you know, it's a small world because I lived in Schweinfurt for a few years when I was stationed over in Germany.
Is that right?
And kind of the barracks that we lived in, it was an old German concern. But there's a building and a building and a building, you know, I mean, like an army concern, they're all dress. And then there's no building, but there was a basement. And so they had built a tennis court there, and that was one of the buildings that got bombed during World War II. And they said it blew the building out, so they just left the first floor there and used the basement and put tennis courts on top of it. That's what the Americans did when we
You
took
know
over.
that one movie one movie they made with Clark Gable, and he was in the 8th Air Force,
Right.
and he had that plan where in 3 days they had to hit these 3 targets, you know, and everybody was against them,
Right.
all other top generals, you know. And I think Schweinfurt was one of them.
There's a big ball bearing factory there, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how true it is. I had a friend of mine tell me one time that a ball bearing isn't one operation. It takes 2 halves to make a ball bearing.
I have no idea.
Now, I don't know how true
But nothing works without a ball bearing.
Yeah,
You figure anything that moves on a mechanic has got to have a ball bearing in it.
So what is it today? Plastic?
I think ball bearings are still in there. I mean, even if it's plastic, there's a ball bearing in there
Well,
that's
yeah.
making stuff move around. So World War II finishes up, and I know, Jerry, now you joined a little bit later in life. You're a little younger now here. When did you join the service?
I actually joined the Army National Guard while I was in high school, a senior in Pennsylvania, 110th Infantry, 28th Division, Company K out of Washington, PA.
Part of the Keystone
Yes,
Division, right.
right.
So what year was that?
That was 1955.
And when did you go into the Air Force?
After I graduated, I went in the Air Force 1956.
Okay. So I guess we're going to swing ahead here now with Al. You stayed in the Air Force for many years. What did you wind up doing after the B-17s and everything went away?
I did carpenter work, so I was assigned to civil engineers,
Okay.
maintenance and construction.
Building stuff.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do in the Air Force, Jerry?
Well, I started out as an aircraft mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked in maintenance analysis. Then I worked in wing safety. Then I worked in Air Force recruiting, which brought me to Cleveland.
Right.
So a lot of different opportunities that I took advantage
So
of.
the maintenance, there's a lot of quality control and everything. I know, I mean, I know from the little bit I know about aircraft from being in the Army, you know, helicopters, I mean, you're looking at every nut and bolt, screw, string, and everything on those things. So you're a pretty detailed guy, I assume then.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
So Al, I mean, I got to go back to Dresden and all that, because you had mentioned Dresden in World War II, because it's just fascinating. Especially since I've been to Dresden, I've been through some of those countries. What are you thinking about when I mean, it's cold, you're up there with 8 guys, I assume, on the aircraft. How many on the aircraft?
9.
9 guys, and you just drop a load of bombs. I mean, you're just thinking about getting home, I assume.
Right.
And what's going through your head, you know, when it's quiet, there's nobody shooting at you, there's no planes coming, what are you thinking?
You know, well, one thing is glad you're away from the area that was dangerous, and then once you got away, you're just happy-go-lucky. You know, you look for the first pub or whatever.
I imagine you 9 guys are a pretty tight bond.
Oh yeah, we had our pilot was a hell of a guy. Like I said earlier, every so often he used to sneak us a fifth of whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
They're from the officers' club,
Right.
and a lot of other pilots didn't do that.
Right.
This guy. And like I say, he was 19 years old. And I don't know if I told you or not. I think I told Jerry. We were up there flying one day, and well, this was on a training mission. And he kept going like this. So finally I says, "What's the matter, Gib? Don't you feel good?" He says, he said, "I got to take a BM." And we had no toilet. So
The B-24's had toilets, though, right?
I said, "I'm an engineer, but I don't know what the hell I do in this case." So I used to carry my oxygen mask in the box, to keep it from getting destroyed or
Right.
damaged. So I said, "Here, use this box." So he did, and we opened up the bomb bay and threw it out over Jasper, Texas. Now, where it ended up, I don't know, but we had cases.
Well, let's hope nobody from Jasper, Texas is listening.
Well, and that's an odd thing. The third baseman for the Cleveland Indians was from Jasper.
Back then.
Back then. So I often thought, well, maybe I should go tell this guy we dropped a box of crap on him.
I'm sure worse things have fallen from airplanes. Well, that's a good story.
Well, our training was so intense that you were always on a mission, go on a training mission, and guys used to throw out their belts of ammunition. They were tired of firing.
Right.
And then when the base heard of that, man, then they raised hell.
What was the average, from England to Germany and back? What's your average flight time in a mission? How long were you up?
Oh, 6 hours.
5, 6 hours. And I assume back then it's not pressurized. Were you pressurized?
No.
So it's cold.
It was cold, all
Very
right.
cold. I assume there's no heat in them things or anything like that.
Well, we had heating suits, like heating boots,
Right.
gloves, a heating suit, but they just kept you warm in spots. Like if you leaned against something, your back would be warm, but the rest of it would be cold.
Would be cold, huh?
Yeah. And you just put up with it. That's why I think I got all this arthritis today. Is from
The cold, probably.
from all that cold.
So
it used to be 40, 50, 60 below up there for a while.
where were you when the war ended? When the Germans surrendered?
Well, I was at Paddington yet. I think we just come back from Pilsen, and the war ended. And then right away the engineer and radar operator and the pilots they sent us home for 30 days on our way to B-29 training to go to the Pacific. So the war ended there, and that was.
So you never got on the B-29s?
No. And I hear that wasn't exactly what you wanted to be on.
Right. Did you ever make it to Germany? Did you ever go to Germany?
Oh, after the war?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We went there. That guard outfit it was an air refueling unit from Columbus. Where the hell were we before then?
So you flew in tankers years later.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we were at Rhine-Main.
So what year did you go to Germany?
As a civilian?
Well, I mean, when did you make it over to Germany? In the 60s or 70s or?
Oh, it must have been the 60s.
60s?
Yeah.
So I got to ask, because there's probably very few people that get to fly over, drop bombs, and then go back 20 years later. What was going through your head the first time you're walking through the streets of Germany, thinking about 20 years earlier as a young man dropping bombs out of a B-17?
Well, I was amazed at a lot of it, and like I say, I kept all the newspaper clippings on our raids and what happened. They tell you what happened here and what happened there, and then they show pictures or whatever. And I wanted to go see them areas. Like I wanted to go see the Opera House, and, places like that were. Now my brother was telling me that, or my brother, my brother, he was stationed around Nuremberg somewhere, up in the mountains, and he saw him burying all these tanks and airplanes and stuff like that. That bulldozers would just dig a big furrow and they
Right.
dump this stuff in there. You know?
Right.
So here one day I'm sitting at home reading an article, and this one German guy says, "Boy, I was lucky. I just happened to find a bunch of FW-190s in a warehouse, like
Right.
you know." And he knew they were there.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I was the first time I was in Germany stationed was in the late '80s, and I remember in Erlangen, which is a city outside of Nuremberg, there on the base there was an underground garage, you know, like a parking lot, and there was a garage underneath it, and you could go down and look through the door. It had a little window, you know, like door between the concrete, and it was flooded. They had flooded it after the war, and you could see the rooftops of cars that were left there, and they were, you know, from the war. So you're talking 50 years, or, you know, 40 years at that point. And they had been sitting down there in 6 feet of water for that long.
Well, I think the place was called Nordhausen. They had a big underground factory there, wherever it was at.
Yeah,
I don't know if the name of the city was Nordhausen or what, but they look for them places. Like we had another kind of important mission. They sent us up to Peenemünde to blow the hell out of the German research center on rockets and
Right.
stuff, so the Russians wouldn't get it.
so yeah, they wouldn't get the
So
technology.
that's now I can't think of his name. The German scientist that was in charge of everything. Then he came here with his crew of scientists,
That was out of Würzburg, I think.
and they got our program going. We were kind of stuck for a while. I can't think of his name. I think he died of cancer though later on, but he built up our program.
Now, you two guys, I mean, you've been, you know, residents here for a while. And I know you're very active in Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion, and other organizations. But Jerry, what's one of the things that you take away from the military that's made you who you are today, or who you carried on after you retired from the Air Force?
Well, I would say that having served with people from all over the country, and what I learned, the patriotism, the dedication to mission, the love of country, and coming home and continuing to serve and experiencing the same thing here at home, the privilege of visiting our veterans in the nursing homes, assisted living homes, the VA hospital, their dedication, their spirit, it just grows. You know, growing up during World War II and being involved at that level, love of country and love of each other, and depending on each other was so much a part of one's life. You know.
You know, it's funny because I was asked not too long ago, you know, what makes vets special? And actually it was kind of a point, a finger pointed, and why do vets think they're special? And I kind of thought about it, and my first reaction was I wanted to point my finger back. But you think about the number of veteran people that served during World War II, and, you know, so you got 12, 16 million people. I think it was about 18% of the male population served. And you look at today, and we're at like less than a percentage, about 0.5% serves. And I think today, the individual isn't more special, but I think on the whole to the country, they're more special because there's so few of them. I mean, there are so few people serving. Where back then, everybody came home and your buddy served, the guy at the shop served, the daughters, you know, brothers served. Everybody knew somebody that served, and today it's a little bit rare. So, I mean, to me, I think that's why it's, you know, veterans have become so special, because we're becoming a rare commodity throughout the United States.
We're slowly dying off, right?
Yeah, and less people are serving, you know, based on the population.
I-
But Al, what did you take away from your time in service that made you the person you are today, and what you do? I mean, you've been married, what, 64 years?
Right.
Um,
You know, you learned a lot in the service, and one thing was the handling of people. You know, if you had any rank of any kind, and you'd be in charge of, say, the plumbers or the electricians or something like that, and you'd work close with these people, And when you came out, if you came up and if you wanted that same environment, it was there for you.
Right.
You know, so a lot of the guys, they became who they were because they went to the service.
Mm-hmm.
Some they'll never be nothing because they didn't give a damn
Right.
about it. You know, all they wanted to do was go out and drink and
Right.
have a good time. Of course, we all did that, but then we all did a certain amount of work.
Yeah, but I mean, you build a certain sense of patriotism and pride, and I think in the service you realize how good we have it in this country. I mean, and you'd mentioned that when your parents had come over from another country. I mean, and they understood what it means to be an American and the values and you know what you can get out of America, and which obviously there's things you can't get too. But and I think the service does that still today for people. I mean, you get to see some things in some different places.
It's a jump-off place, you know, just like when I grew up when they had the 3 Cs, Civil Conservation Corps,
Right.
and all the young guys, 15, 16, 17, 18, they were going because they were getting fed there.
Right.
You know, like my friends would come home and say, "Oh man, if I wanted 12 pancakes," he said, "I just sat there until they brought them to me,
Right.
this or that," you know.
Right.
And money, I forget how they really did that. Was I don't know whether they got $21 a month or what, and he gave 10 and they'd send 11 home or something like
Right.
that. But they sent these guys to the 3 Cs. They learned how to drive bulldozers, graders, and stuff like that. They built a lot of parks and roads, you know, and
Right.
dams and stuff like that. So a lot of those guys learned the trade.
Right.
You
That
know.
they carried on.
Right.
Yeah.
And the 3 Cs was no different than the military, you know. You had
Yeah.
your barracks life and
Right.
stuff like that, you know. And all these buddies of mine that went, you know, they become decent citizens. They weren't prisoners of any kind or any, you know, and I think a lot of that is because of their ethnic bringing up too.
So you married 64 years. When did you get married? Right after the war?
Oh, about 5 years after the war.
Did your wife know you when you were over there?
No.
So your wife obviously spent a lot of time with you in the Air Force, though.
Right.
How did she like military life as a wife?
Well, she did stay home a lot because most of the time I was in Columbus. And over there, when they put me on active duty, they put me on there to work with construction.
Right.
So whatever came up in the line of construction, I'd be with the civil engineers, and I always got home on weekends.
Right.
So it wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad. Now, Jerry, what about you? You moved around a lot in the Air Force. How your wife? I mean, you've been married, I know, several years.
Right.
And how does your wife deal with the moves and everything like that?
Well, we looked forward to every community we were in. You met new friends.
Right.
And, you know, attended a new church and enjoyed their community, and it was a great experience to live in different parts of this country, and because we have such a wonderful country, such a gift that we have.
Right.
The freedom we enjoy.
You know, sometimes it's bittersweet. We're leaving one place, but you can't look. You're looking forward to getting to somewhere else. It is.
Right.
It's kind of a, you know, you hate to go, but you can't wait to get somewhere else. It's strange.
You know, at one time, the military was just one of the poorest paying group of people there was.
Right.
Until Reagan became president. And what was it he voted? I think I got a 16% raise. That's a big raise.
That's a big raise, yeah.
16%, you know, especially if you got, like at that time I was a tech sergeant.
Right.
So 16 times over that.
Was pretty good money.
And then you got a housing allowance, like I got, I forget what it was now, $680 a month housing, which we didn't use, we put in the bank, because I could stay at the base for $6 a day.
$6 a day. Wow.
You know, and so we did that. We kind of, you know, we planned everything, or we looked out for everything, and you know, and slowly it helped. You know.
So let me ask you both this. One thing that you would tell somebody about your service, and I always ask everybody, you know, would you do it all over again? Jerry?
Yes, I would. It's an honor and privilege. You serve with so many wonderful people and meet so many wonderful people both at home and overseas, wherever you happen to be. It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm grateful for it. And yes, I would do it again.
Do it again. Al?
Yeah, I do it again.
Yep.
When I first came out discharged, it didn't bother me. You know, I did it and was over with.
Right.
I was retired. But I still had that little urge there. You see an airplane, you look up at it, you know, or you
miss it.
You go to these shows, you know, and I'd go down to Wright Pat a couple times a year, and you know, well, the biggest thing was through the Guards, you were staying active.
Right.
You know. And no, I do it again. Well, today, where can you get a better job than in the military? Now, if I remember what my son John told me, he's a master sergeant now, and I think with the package deal, living allowance and everything, he's making $90,000 a year.
Yeah, it pays pretty good in the military.
Now, what the hell are you going to go in a factory and tell them, hey, I want a job for $90,000 a year? You know?
Right, pays pretty good.
But then you have to work for it. You know, it takes a period of years to get up to tech sergeant.
Right. Yeah, you just don't give it to you.
Right. You know, some get. You know, that's I used to admire these infantry guys. You know, I take nothing away from a man that was in the military, but these infantry guys during World War II, I don't know about World War I, but during World War II, they spent maybe 3 years overseas, and they come home with the Good Conduct Medal and the Theater Medal.
Right.
And that was it. All that time, you know, you think that they got a little more.
After a while, I think after there was so many years, but they did start to award most of the infantry guys Bronze Stars and stuff like that.
Just like the mechanics, you know. The crew members, they'd walk by with a bunch of ribbons on their chest, and the crew members would have two.
Right.
And they'd work the rear end off.
Right.
Like, they worked all night to get our planes ready for the next day,
Right.
and it was all outside of hangars, too.
Yeah.
You know, so I give them guys credit.
Hey, I want to thank both of you guys for coming by and being on this month's Salute to Service. Mr. Al Kato and Mr. Jerry Lemons, United States Air Force veterans, retired. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, great game.
You too, let's celebrate. Want to grab some beer?
No, I can't. Alcohol and medications do not mix, especially pain medications. That's worse.
That's terrible, why?
Well, as you age, alcohol and medications have a greater risk on you and a more harmful impact. I learned this from a website.
Where can I learn more?
Well, you can go to www.hands-foundation.org or call 330-225-4242.
Hi, I'm Ed Zachary with Medina County Veterans Service Office. And if you're a veteran and you're in a crisis, or worse yet, contemplating suicide, I want you to pick up the phone and call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. Do it now.
You're watching The Bat.